later on we'll take your questions. And this will be intended to be just public information. It's non-partisan, and it doesn't have any candidates that we're promoting or not promoting. It is simply informational. The topics tonight, as mentioned online and other places, regarding taxes, why are they going up, why are they so high? Roads, some of you have mentioned maybe the roads need some repairs. And are there any new projects in town? And public safety, which would be shot spotter, porch bandits, scams, door-to-door scams, phone scams, internet scams, and believe it or not, the Holyoke Police Department has gotten involved in some of those. I'm hoping to have the sergeant here tonight. I don't see him right now, but if he comes in, he's on the docket. The meeting structure is basically right now we're going to start and have Kevin come up to introduce the topic of the city budget relative to taxes and where the budget's going. And then about 7 o'clock, my name is Press Macy, and I will be addressing, I've looked up some information about the roads and the budgets for the roads and what's going on, and mention that to you. And then there's going to be the public safety portion with Sergeant Summers of the Rides, and he mentioned he might bring a detective along as well. So that's the presentation portion. And then there are 2 microphones here, so we can have a microphone go on, and I would welcome questions, including perspectives. You're free to mention what you need to get your point across. And obviously we want to keep it so that we can close here around 8 o'clock. The Senior Center wants us to be closed about 8 o'clock. I want to thank the Senior Center for making this available to us. It's a real nice thing that we have in a place, a public place, to have people have conversations. So I guess honestly, quite a bit ahead of schedule, Kevin, if you can tolerate that.
Sure.
I think we're done with introductions. Does anybody have anything? Yes, sir. What? Yes, I know that. I guess I didn't understand the question. Oh, okay. Yes, I did. I saw that. And you're there and you're all together. But and with that, Kevin, if you wouldn't mind coming up and talking about these issues.
Will you be able to do a scan of the room to see who's here? I'm interested in the back row.
You see, we also, we do have a number of the candidates are here too. I see Councilor Mike Sullivan is here. I see Councilor Howard Graney is here. I see Jennifer Keat is here. I was talking earlier to Christopher Dune is here. Is there anybody else that's a candidate for office? Okay. All right, just want to make sure everybody got introduced. Just give me a moment. Well, first of all, I wanted to say thank you to Better Holyoke for All for giving me an opportunity to speak tonight and inviting me to say a few words about a couple of my favorite topics. One is about the state of city finances and particularly talking about taxes and to kind of where are we, how did we get here, and where are we at? Obviously, the city's financial issues are a great deal in the news, and I wanted to give certainly my perspective, and I was asked to give my perspective on where we've been with the taxes. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was relative to the tax levy history. So as you all know, our beautiful city of Holyoke was founded as a town in 1850. And obviously when you start, your tax levy is 0. Well, as we flash ahead the first 150 years of Holyoke history to 1999, the tax levy went from 0 to $28 million. Okay, so $28.6 million to be exact. So Not too much, really, when you think about it, over 150 years. And so you say, well, since 1999 to today, what has happened? Well, from 1999 to now, 2025, the tax levy has gone from $28 million to $70 million. Okay? So when you think that the tax levy has gone up quite a bit, it's because it has. It's just a number, it's a fact. And it's particularly escalated in recent years. Back in fiscal year 2014, the tax levy hit the ceiling for the very first time at $53 million. In 2023, the tax levy hit $60 million. And now today, we're at $70 million. So the other thing that's been concerning to a number of citizens is what is the makeup of the tax base? In 1999, 57% of our taxes were generated based on residential property values. 43% was based on commercial and industrial taxes. Today, 77% is residential and 23% is commercial industrial. It's been nearly cut in half, the commercial and industrial. Big part of that is what has happened to the Holyoke Mall and formerly to the Mountain Power Plant. As we also know, meanwhile, post-COVID, we've also seen the residential values really go up dramatically. So when we think about the overall tax history and the tax levy, we've seen a dramatic increase. So from fiscal year 2012 to fiscal year 2022, we went from 49 million to 50 million. So that's 10 million over that 10-year period. Now, since fiscal year 22 to now, we've gone up $11 million. That is to say, in the last 4 years, we've gone up more on taxes than we did in the prior 10 years. So that's a pretty dramatic increase. So for those of us who, and I know certainly Better Holyoke for All has been one of their mainstays of issues, is they've been very concerned about the growing tax rate on residents, and they've been very concerned about the tremendous increase in the tax burden. The fact of the matter is those concerns are clearly valid, right? The numbers are really, really up. So as we think about what is going on and where is our money, we can clearly see taxes are up, and they're up a lot. So Holyoke government has to do a better job of making sure that we are sensitive to this, because what is the impact to Holyokers? Well, one of the things that's very concerning to a number of citizens is been the residential tax burden in particular. As you know, we have some of the lowest per capita income in the state of Massachusetts. And so when you take this massive tax burden and put that as a percentage of household income, it's really quite alarming. It's over 10% of household income is going to shoulder property tax burden here in the city of Holyoke. So when residents have expressed a lot of concerns about the affordability of living in Holyoke, this is what they're talking about. And so they're really, really concerned about where this is at. And so it's something that city government is going to have to do a lot of work on to shoulder this burden and to make sure that more and more is not put on the residents and that we're being more efficient with the money that's being given. So I was also asked to talk about the current Holyoke fiscal crisis that's going on. And so I wanted to talk with some takeaways from the most recent finance committee and some of the things that you're reading about in the newspaper. So the first thing, one of the takeaways, and I came out with 6, and I mentioned one of them being the obvious increase in the taxes, this notion that we've gone up 19% on the taxes in the last 4 years, well more than what we've gone up in the prior 10 years, I had 5 other sort of what I call alarming takeaways. The first is that the city has not reconciled its cash accounts for 2023, 24, and 25. And the city has never been that far behind in its cash reconciliations. Holyoke also has no free cash for 24 and 25. And the thing that's concerning about that is even if at some point we get these funds, which it's likely we will at some point date in the future if the accounts are reconciled and we can get back in the good graces of the state, is that all the millions of dollars that are held in free cash would have been in the city's coffers, not the state. And these funds would then have been available to put on the tax levy, which is to reduce your taxes. So citizens are artificially paying a higher tax rate when we don't have access to the unspent millions of prior fiscal years. And number 2, you also lose access to the interest that those millions of dollars would be earning the Treasury of Holyoke, right? If you have millions of dollars in the bank, those monies could be invested in earning interest. Those interest dollars could be used to pay for staff, to do city projects, to reduce tax burden. We lose all those monies, and those monies are permanently lost. The other thing that's been very concerning is that for the prior 2 years, we had our local aid payments suspended. And now, in an unprecedented move, to even start the fiscal year 26, our local aid payments have been suspended. And this was reported recently in the newspaper, so that since July 1st, Holyoke has not been receiving its local aid payments. They want us to do the reconciliations and to do all this work that is owed to this state before they're going to release those funds. And those funds are quite considerable. We receive approximately $7 million a month in local aid payments. And again, like the free cash dollars, these not having access to these local aid funds also crimps the city's cash flow, which goes to the question of how do we effectively pay our bills? And number 2, we also lose the interest on $7 million a month, which becomes $14 million a month, which becomes $21 million a month. It compounds month after month. So hundreds of thousands of dollars of interest fees and interest charges that could be accruing to the city's benefit are lost. So that's another real big concern. The other thing that has been very concerning is talking about who we have in the roles. So one of the things that is being talked about is how do we get to effectively create the new structure of the finances of the city. And the first thing that we did was to have a vote back in January to have an appointed treasurer. There is many of us who feel we need to actually have a qualified treasurer, someone who has the education and the experience to be in that role. And that was the goal of having an appointed treasurer. Unfortunately, 3 years ago, city leadership, I did not vote in that. It was a 9-3 vote on September 1st, 2022, that there would be appointed a treasurer who lacked these qualifications. There was another candidate who had a CPA and who had decades of finance experience. So over the last 3 years, we have not had the type of leadership and experience that we've needed. And we had a vote back in January to have an appointed treasurer created. The public did vote for that. A couple times in the past, we did have prior votes and the public voted down having an appointed treasurer. But this time the public voted for it. But unfortunately, that order to create that, and the qualifications and the appointment process has been sitting in committee at the City Council. Some of us are pushing to get that moving soon. In fact, I believe Councilor Bacon and others at the Ordinance Committee tonight are actually debating and trying to get that passed so that we can begin the process of having a new treasurer. The current treasurer term expires in February under the state statute that was approved by the voters. So very soon we have to get a new treasurer. We've also put in hundreds of thousands of dollars to try and turn this treasurer's office around, to bring in a company by the name of Unifin to do reconciliations in that account. Unfortunately, we've come to find out these reconciliations have not been done. Then, the other thing that was a real big takeaway for me was the lost bond rating. We've come to learn that back in June of 2024, the city lost its bond rating. And this is very concerning because we need to be able, just like many people, to borrow funds so that we can manage the different projects and expenditures that the city needs to do. But since June of 2024, because Holyoke for 2 years prior did not have its finances in order and do not have audited financial statements, we lost our bond rating. This, interestingly enough, in November was supposed to be fixed. And we were told, at least to one news reporter, that it would be fixed, and it was not. And now we've come to learn recently it's still not fixed, and we still do not have a bond rating to this very day. So this is also very disconcerting. So we're looking forward and pushing to make sure that that gets taken care of. So as we think about where we go forward, I have come up with a number of suggestions that I'm recommending to move us forward. The first is that we hire a competent city treasurer, that we bring this person on board to advise the city throughout the duration of any other reforms that we have. The state has also stated that they have given us 60 days from October 1st to December 1st in order to do the reconciliations that are required in order for them to begin to take off a number of these compliance punishments, if you will, really, to the city, and to get us back in good standing. The mayor recently stated at the finance meeting he does not believe that they will be able to complete those reconciliations by December 1st. The state has stated that if the city of Holyoke does not do that, then they're going to retain a firm to do that work. I, myself, support the state in doing that on the premise that we need an independent firm that the state believes in and is going to do the work according to the specifications that the state requires, and that work will be done once and for all. Now, and by the way, the other benefit of having the state do this work is that they're really going to open the books and there won't be any question as to their independence and what they find. We will then have access to that firm to come before the city council to question them on their different various findings. The city should embrace independence. They should embrace opening the books. And unfortunately, it doesn't feel like an embrace. There's been some talk about, oh, this is going to put us in receivership and all of this. None of that is what the state is looking to do. They simply want us to live up to the commitments that this city leadership has been telling them they're going to do. And they've simply said, the clock has run out on your excuses. And that they now want you to actually do it, or they're going to do it. Now, the third piece of the solution is, and I do support the mayor's proposal to bring in TJ Plant and his firm for $137,000 to provide the support in consulting services to make sure that the state has the things that they need, has the materials that they need to complete the reconciliations. I think that they're going to have the competence and the qualifications to know what the state needs to do the work that they need to do. So really, it's a function of three major components. One, having and appointing immediately what the public voted for, a competent appointed treasurer. Two, having the consulting services almost serving in that CAFO type role that is wanted to see if that has an impact and to get the state what they need. Three, have the state do their independent review and have those reconciliations. And number four, making sure that we have a city council doing its job, providing this oversight, and making sure that we are doing what we need to do to make sure all of this is held accountable and transparent to the people of Holyoke. That requires independent, competent leadership, and I hope that, and I'm sure the public will choose wisely in a couple of weeks, and we've got a number of candidates that are out there running, and we wish certainly everybody well, and I thank the Keep Holyoke for All for allowing me an opportunity and inviting me this evening to speak with you and to share this information with you. And I'd certainly be open to any questions that anyone would have. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, press, and thank you for putting this forum together. Have a good evening.
I'm going to join Kevin in my seat. I have a hard time standing up for a period of time.
Are you taking questions?
We will. Could we wait until the end?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And I have a microphone so your question will be heard and understood, and whatever you want. The city streets, I think many people have commented, are not in very good shape. And I was wondering a lot why that is and what we have for handling this. And it turns out, just as a little bit of background, Holyoke, according to the State Department of Transportation, has 176 miles of roadway in the city boundary. And of the 176 miles, 132.6 miles are considered city streets. So Route 91, which goes through Holyoke, is not considered a city street. And also things like Route 5 and Route 20 do not qualify as a city street. You may or may not know, I didn't until recently, Northampton Street, Route 5, is a state road from the East Hampton border to where the light comes down from Mount Tom. And then it's a city street from that light to Lincoln Street. And then it's a state street from Lincoln Street to, I think it's, darn it, it always escapes me the name of the street, the one-way street going down. Dwight. And then it's a city street all the way to, I think to the end of till it boundaries West Springfield. So the classification of streets is important because money to repair them and maintain them are according to who owns that street. And that's why, and I live in that area, so I'm aware of it, the Route 5 between Lincoln and Dwight was just redone. It's lovely. But up to that point and beyond that point, it's not as good. So that's what happens in the city streets. The streets get funded in part by the state. It's called Chapter 90 funds. These are used to resurface and do deeper repairs. And the city engineer and public works people, they create a list of repairs to be made. Now the state maintains a list of all streets in every city, and it even divides the streets down into sections, and it scores them. So we can have part of a street score a 90, meaning it's in pretty good shape, and another part would score a 40, meaning it's not in very good shape. And this This is, it's a very extensive list. It's like 17 or 20 pages long. And it's online, it's available if you want to see it. They call it, it's, the last part of it is Holyoke pavement conditions by street name. And it was updated in September of 2024. So this is the list from which they compile how to repair streets. But how much does it cost to repair a street? Well, in the Cornell did a local study on roads and found that it could cost anywhere from $4,400 to $10,400 to maintain and manage a mile of road, city street. The state of Washington State said it goes from $1,500 to $23,600 to maintain some streets. Then the cost of road resurfacing can vary widely from $173,000 to over $700,000 per mile, depending on the type of resurfacing and the specific project requirements. For example, do they have to dig up and get the underlayment done before they can resurface or not? And in Worcester, they recently had a resurfacing project where it was $1.9 million per mile. Well, under the 90 rule, state chapter 90, Holyoke is entitled to $1.8 million. So we can basically have our roads repaired about every 132 years, which isn't really very often. Although I think that beats New York. I heard one time New York was every 300 years. So how is this apportioned? And this is the frustrating part for a committee like ours. By the way, people here are invited to join the committee. It's nonpartisan, it's independent, and it really is just to investigate questions. I mean, you look at the several questions, and these came out of that. So the population judge is 35% of the formula, and the number of miles is 55% of the formula. So we're really not in a position to lobby for more Chapter 90 funds, because we have 132 miles of city streets, we have a population of 38,238 people, and it judges out to be 1.44 million on the 300 million that's apportioned, and there was an $80 million additional apportionment. We got 400,000, 380,000 out of that, for the total of 1.81. And that is for repairing potholes. No, it's not for repairing potholes, it's for resurfacing streets. The city itself has a $70,000 budget item for repairing potholes, sidewalks, signage, I think painting, and that money, as you might imagine, for 132 miles, it doesn't go real far. The other thing that happens in the city is there's a manual on uniform traffic control devices, the MUTCD. So if someone asks for a stop sign, the city's required to go to the state, say we want a stop sign here. They look it up in the manual uniform traffic control devices, and it's decided there whether it's warranted or not warranted. And if it's not warranted, they say no. And if it is warranted, then according to your budget, you're committed to do that. So the city streets are kind of controlled a lot by budget, but also by these things called the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is a thick book, and it covers all kinds of things. It even covers how you set speed limits. It covers how parking, and just any number of things. Anything you can think of when it comes to a road is in the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. Then, in addition to that, we have a local appropriation called a fair share, which we got $225,000 this last year, but it's being directed to public transit and public college and university campuses. So that's really not being used. Now, to be honest with you, I don't understand how we can move the needle very much on that. And I think that maybe we have to think about, as a city, and maybe as a group of cities, talking to the state about the general state of repair. I was talking with, this is District 2, talking to a woman there, and I mentioned I was in my reading, North Dakota or South Dakota, one of them, They actually are tearing up the pavement going back to dirt roads because it's very much cheaper to maintain a dirt road. And she surprised me. She said, yeah, we've been talking about that too. So I don't know how close to that being done, but these are methods to take care of our transportation needs and to not spend money that we don't have. Or we go back and we petition the state to either change the formula or to put more than $300 million into the treasury chest so that we can spend more money on our roads. So unfortunately, it doesn't seem like we're going to get a lot of relief very quickly. In addition to this, there is a project that the state's, it's actually been working on for a while now, where they want to look at High Street and Maple Street and revise the traffic patterns on those two streets. And it goes from where 391 empties into High Street all the way down to the other end. The purpose of it, it's, if you look at the campaign, what they want to do is they want to make each of those two streets a single lane, not two lanes. They want to make some very generous bike paths on both sides of the street, and they want to make generous sidewalks on both sides of the street, and they want to make bus lanes. And the purpose of this, frankly, is to slow traffic down. So I talked to the woman in charge of that today. She's kind of bird dogging it for the state. And she said, it's for safety. And I said, well, is this called a quality street? And the concept is called a complete street. And if you look it up, there's a whole background on what is a complete street. Now I think of this a little bit like Northampton and that very nice retail area that they have. This has been very effective for them. A complete street, according to the organization, is supposed to cause the following wonderful things. It's supposed to reduce injuries and fatalities. It's supposed to improve the economy. It's supposed to support better health outcomes. It's supposed to reduce environmental impacts. It's supposed to increase community belongingness and to promote equity. And I asked this woman how they're looking at this, and she said, oh yeah, this is a complete street concept, what they want to do with High Street and Maple Street. She said, we want to segregate and basically partition off bicycle paths so they're not traveling in the car automotive area, have bus lanes, and have sidewalks. And then they would choose the formation of the curbs to promote that. Like if there's a loading and unloading zone, the curb would have a slope so a truck could drive onto that sidewalk. And if it's intended to basically partition it, it's a regular curb. It's difficult to go over, at least sideways. And the concept there is that